All right. Hello. I hope this is working. And also, I'm sorry to hear about the issue with your son. I hope everything is well. Um, and so I will be giving you my presentation on Colombia now. Okay. So my project is in the country of Colombia. And it's okay. So a brief history of Colombia. Let me see if I can get myself out of the way. Colombia was originally occupied by Amerindians. The first Spanish settlement was in 1533, and that was Cartagena and Santa Marta. This is one of the many conquistadors who established settlements in Colombia. In 1808, Napoleon appointed his brother as the king of Colombia, but was largely unaccepted. And in 1810, Colombia declared a short independence and was quickly reconquered by Spain for kind of in between 1810 and 1819. And in 1819, the Department of Gran Colombia was established, basically as Panama, Colombia, Venezuela, and I am blanking on this country's name, but in up until 1830, it was called Quito. In 1830, Colombia became largely independent, and eventually Panama gained their independence, forming what we know as Colombia today. So some more recent history, they had 8 total civil wars in the 19th century, and even more happened in the 20th century. 1957, the civil wars kind of died down, and the presidency was shared between conservatives and liberals. And then 1970s is when you started to see the drug trade. So as you can see here, Pablo Escobar and his cocaine became very prominent, and eventually that turned into more cartels once Escobar's cartel went down. This here is a picture of some Colombian soldiers during one of their civil wars. And then in the 1980s, there was a severe recession, causing tons of economic fallout. In the 2000s, the country started recovering, and currently they are a tourist location, which is where a lot of their income comes from. And I did not include it in the slides, but recent news involves them dealing with their own immigration issue with Venezuelan immigrants. So as for achievements, two Colombian natives participated in the invention of the pacemaker in 1958. It's not guaranteed that they were the exact, the first inventors of the pacemaker, but they had a part in creating it, and they created one of the first working external pacemakers in 1958. Colombia also accounts for about 70 to 90% of the world's emerald market. So if you see an emerald, it's almost guaranteed that it probably, came from Colombia. They also export 15% of the world's cut flowers, which is second in the world behind Switzerland. So again, flowers are a large part of Colombia's contribution to the world. Another contribution and achievement that Colombia has is they developed social urbanism, which is the idea of giving, poor slums, and urban districts the best views in the cities that they have. This has to do with, creating more value for people to live in the slums. And this has been adopted by a lot of countries. You can see this in a lot of Latin American countries, especially, but it was originally developed in Colombia. And then they also invented sophrology, which is a type of sociology involving physical and mental exercises, and it's used in a lot of sports therapy and other therapies today. It is a common tool for many, for the mental aspect of many sports teams. As for culture, a large part of Colombia's culture is parties and celebrations. As you can see here, this is a celebration of Colombia's Independence Day. They have it is 18 long weekends a year. So they have 18 Monday holidays that they celebrate. Parties and festivals are very common in Colombia, and it's a big part of their culture. As for food, they have some some foods that come from Colombia include just desserts made from panela, which is a type of brown sugar. Ajiaco, I hope I pronounced that right, which involves 3 potatoes, chicken, and corn, and it's a stew. It's a very common meal, especially in the area around, the capital, closer to there. As for more coastal regions, you have sancocho, which is like a fish and chicken stew. So stews are very traditional for Colombians. Then you have aguardiente, which is a rum and corn of sugar brandy. So that's right here. Alcohol is a very integral part of their culture. Lots of beer is consumed in Colombia as well. And another big piece of culture in Colombia is 95% of the population in Colombia identifies themselves as a Roman Catholic. So Catholicism has a huge hold on Colombians, and about 85% of those Roman Catholics actively go to services and services every week. So other cultures include language. They speak Colombian Spanish, and Spanish slang is very popular in Colombia. So using slang words, kind of English infused Spanish, using English words every now and then in their Spanish is very common. Music, you have curulao, joropo, joropo, bambuco, and mapale. Curulao is a more traditional folk style type music you dance kind of more formally, as you can kind of see here. The dresses look more formal. The dancing looks a little more formal. Joropo is more of a upbeat swing kind of music, as you can see in this photo here of it. They're dancing a lot more wildly and freely. And then Bambuco and Mapale are other similar types of music, more folk traditional music. Okay. As for immigration statistics, as of 2017, there were 1.2 million Colombian immigrants in the United States. This is the seventh largest portion of Hispanic immigrants in the U.S. Since 2000, the Colombian origin of U.S. citizens increased 148%, and the foreign-born Colombian population increased 99%. So this means that the second, third, fourth generation, mostly second and third generation of Colombians has increased by a dramatic amount. And then foreign-born is, direct immigrants from Colombia has increased a large amount as well. Causes for immigration, constant civil wars, as I mentioned earlier. There was 8 civil wars in the 19th century and even more after that. So the violence from that drove a lot of people out. The drug trade, cocaine, drug wars, this led to a lot of people, leaving because of the danger in a lot of their cities. If you've ever watched Narcos, you can see some examples of, Pablo Escobar bombing convenience stores, storming the Capitol, and events like that led to many people emigrating from Colombia. Other reasons, violence caused by guerrillas and cartels. So cartels, this is a Cali cartel, which was operative during Escobar's reign. It kind of took over after he died. So violence surrounding a lot of their work still plagued the country for a long time. And then guerrillas, they're still common around Colombia, just not as common, but fighting kind of for their own interests as opposed to what the government's interests are is very common. And that violence causes people to emigrate. Now, one of the biggest ones is recession and poor economic opportunities, especially in the 80s and 90s. That's when a lot of immigrants came from Colombia. It's when almost most of Colombian immigrants came to the United States. It's, the total number when you split in half is kind of like the economy now is a little bit better. So less people are immigrating for those reasons, but especially in the 80s and 90s, recession and economic opportunities caused a large immigration from Colombia into many countries, including the US. So the impact of immigration on the United States, most Colombian immigrants are in Florida, and then New York and New Jersey are after that. Most immigrants, especially in the 80s and 90s, were middle/upper class. So they came over, they had education, they had skills to provide the United States. And so many Colombian immigrants are actually employed. So they contribute skills and talents to the United States, and they also contribute taxes, economic wealth to the United States. And so the large amount of Colombians as a largely positive aspect for the United States. And here you have this is it's hard to tell, but this is a drawing of Miami with the Colombian flag, kind of showing their large presence and contribution to Florida and Miami. The impact of immigration in Colombia. So before 2000, you have the Colombian diaspora, which is displacement of Colombians. This has to do with the recession and violence. And when I talk about most Colombians leaving in the 80s and 90s, this is what I'm talking about. A large amount of Colombians left during this time. There is positive impact from the Colombian diaspora. The positive impact is due to remittances, which is income being sent from to families from people who have emigrated to other countries. It is actually the third main source of foreign money in Colombia and has surpassed the coffee industry for, money from foreign countries. Here you have kind of a little chart of remittances. So Colombia is the fourth highest recipient of remittances in Latin America, with $6.4 billion being sent in just 2018. And there are 3.7 million Colombians living abroad, equal to 7% of the Colombian population. 31% of remittances are sent from the United States, which is one of the largest amounts. And you have Venezuela, Spain, and other countries. So lots of money coming from the United States, from families being sent to other family, or from now U.S. citizens, more specifically sent to families back in Colombia. Negative impacts include the loss of talent and energy. So where the United States gained a lot of skilled workers and labor, Colombia lost that. About half of Colombian physicians, or so half of the physicians in Colombia are now in the United States. So these physicians were trained in Colombia and now they are working in the United States. And then there is the coffee industry took a large hit because of a loss of workers, including a lot of families live on their remittances. And so they don't see the need to work in an industry like the coffee industry. And so they have a lack of manual labor in that regard. To finish up here, I'll put myself here. Some immigration issues, so issues for immigrants. One, it's a dangerous journey, especially if you're immigrating legally. Walking through deserts, crossing oceans, getting on boats and using paths that aren't widely traveled with a lack of resources. As you can see here, most of these immigrants have a backpack, most likely filled with clothes, food, and small valuables. And then they all have about 1 gallon of water. So you run out of water in an area like this, lots of danger, not to mention wild animals, police, border patrol, cartels, and then another one is human trafficking. So human trafficking is a problem for Colombia. They pose as travel groups in order offering immigration to the United States, and then they kidnap and sell people into slavery. So this is an issue you could run into very easily if you're trying to immigrate out of Colombia. As for Colombians in the United States, only 30% of Colombians, and these are all foreign born, so immigrants specifically, most of these numbers are higher when you get to second generation, third generation Colombians in the United States. So 30% of Colombians obtain a bachelor's degree, 12% of Colombians live in poverty in the United States. 49% of Colombians own a house. 62% of Colombians are fluent in English, with 57% of them being adults. Or 57% of Colombian adults being fluent in English, which is interesting because children are seem to be much more fluent in English. And another interesting thing is just slightly more immigrant Colombians own a house than second, third generations. But a lot of Colombians live in poverty. Not a lot of them get a good amount of education, and this isn't a great number when it comes to English, especially living in the United States. So and this is proficient, so some Colombians are below average in English, but a lot of them have not issues or no skills in English, which is really hard to get by in the United States without. So here's my references, and that is my presentation. Thank you for watching / listening. And I'm terrible at saying adios, but I hope you have a good next couple of weeks.